step forward.
Hello, everyone. It is the Captain, the Lushvi, and King of the Comics, and we are back with another episode of the Then and Now podcast. It's been a little bit since we've been live, but before we get into anything, how are my brothers doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm busy. I don't know what. I can't even see straight, but I'm happy to be here. Happy to see y'all. I'm good, man. How you living?
Hey, man, trying to stay black and stay out the way, my brother. I cannot complain.
You can't do both. You can't choose one or the other.
Oh God, that's tough. How about our residential pessimist? How you doing, my brother?
I was wondering you gonna call him.
At all. Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, just realizing how much I don't enjoy school. I don't miss it.
You just not realizing that?
I mean, I've realized it the entire time I've been in it. These 7 weeks of class, I'm looking forward to getting the next 7 weeks done so we can be on with it. Because dear Lord. But besides that, I'm decent. Great content out. You know, Invincible is invincible in. And we got a movie to talk about. We have a movie.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like you, Otis, you and I are in the exact same boat. We were both in school for the next 7 weeks, and Charlie works at a school. So we're all kind of schooled up, even though we are all grown ass adults. So it's just life is fun. Life is fun.
Yeah, bro. And plus, I got my grad school application in, so possibly next fall I'm starting a whole different journey of school.
Go back to more school. Look at this guy.
Yeah, I know. It's the whole thing. But to speak on the movie today, we came to talk about today. Motion sickness is what I call this shit. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Understandably so. Why do you need to have a camera that close all the time? All the time.
Well, for people that are wondering, we're discussing Monkey Man, directed by Dev Patel, produced by Jordan Peele, Samarth Sani, and Erica Lee. I think there's like a couple more producers on it. This film was a little disappointing for me. I thought it was going to be we reacted to the trailer in our video that came out last week, in which
was gas.
We thought that it was essentially just going to be simple revenge tale, you know, akin to a Django, a Kill Bill, something of the sort. Somebody does you wrong, you go kill them and anybody else that helps do you wrong. We get like pretty cut and dry. And for the most part, that's what that was. There's a lot of stuff thrown in, but first and foremost, the biggest thing that I had an issue with, which I think is the main reason we all talked about wanting to go see it, was the action. And I think the last 15 minutes, it was a lot better and it was okay. The first like 45 to 50 minutes of this film, I was legitimately dizzy in the theater trying to watch this. They did this thing to where they did a super close up angle on all the fight scenes, and then it was shaky, and then the edits were quick hard cuts. So it was literally like I'm on a roller coaster opening and closing my eyes the whole time. And I'm like, I've never visibly, actively been dizzy watching a movie. If I would have seen it on a smaller TV, it wouldn't have been as bad. But because I have this huge movie screen in front of me, I do have to close my eyes for a little bit at certain points because I was dizzy.
And that's the thing right there. Minutes. I did see it on a small screen out here. A screen. I mean, I watched it on my computer. Full disclosure, I watched it on my computer illegally this week, allegedly. And because I saw it on a screen and the size of like a YouTube video, I was able to watch him sitting back. Like, oh, it's clear. I can watch it clear as day, no problems. Didn't get dizzy, didn't get sick. Was able to follow everything without a problem. So I had a very different experience watching the movie than you did. I had the exact opposite experience watching the movie than you did.
Yeah,
this was. If you want to see this, I wait for it to go to streaming platform. Maybe it's not as bad. It could just be because
I didn't get nauseous at all. I was able to see it all.
But I was genuinely dizzy and nauseous watching this.
Yeah.
No, I mean it didn't make me dizzy or nauseous, but I was like, why do you choose to do this on purpose? Like some of the shots that they got were honestly like really great shots. Like, I mean, when you see him at the bottom of the the tower looking up at all the people yelling. I mean, great shot, great color, use of color, beautiful. But then like sometimes when they just like having a basic conversation, or he's just like looking in the mirror, like they intentionally like misalign it, making him like off to the side, and it's like a fuzzy shot. It was like, why? Like,
I thought it was like supposed to represent him being disoriented at first, but then it just lasted so long. Like, what?
He was so mad.
Let's do this. So we're doing a full blown spoiler review for this, right? Why not? We're gonna do start for an hour live, but nothing. So okay, so let's do a full blown spoiler review. But let's start from the beginning of the movie and talk about what the movie is actually about, not just a few camera angles. Let's go and get into it for real.
We can talk about it. For me, the reason I went so hard on the camera work is because that was 90% of what people were going to see this movie for. The plot was relatively simple. For anybody that, again, if you want to avoid spoilers for it, go watch it and then come back. But essentially, the film is a revenge tale. This character who is in some time period of India. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a futuristic world, or it's obviously some subset of India in which he is from a village that was very religious in nature, or they were on sacred holy land. The government, who is pretty much run by this Ali Lama sort of dictator, who is secretly evil, he essentially wanted to take that land because it was holy and murdered his entire family and everybody he knew in that village to take such land. And I thought that was it. That was pretty quick, cut and dry. He's going to go kill the guy that killed his family and the guy that orchestrated it. But then they also interwove this like subplot of trans representation, which I'm never mad at that. I just thought it was so randomly placed in the film because they made the trans community so essentially, for people that aren't aware, the trans community in this story, they worship the god Shiva. And I remember I researched this in college where Kali, Shiva and Kali, they form into one individual. And I can't remember the name of that being in particular because they become a whole new person. And that individual is obviously man and woman. So this trans sect of people worship them as this particular god, and this amalgamation of these two separate gods into one. And that's their subsect of the religion. And our main character, Dave Patel's character, I can't remember the character's name, honestly. I don't really think it matters. Is it Kia or Kid?
Like Robbie, Robbie or something.
Yeah, he got Robbie as like a name later. That's what the people in the clubs and stuff called him.
It's Kid,
Kid, yeah.
He essentially like does this typical thing you would see in like a martial arts film where he loses a fight and they rescue him, and then he kind of trains but doesn't really train. He just beats a
wait a minute, hold on. You're kind of
It's literally like, what happened? What did he do there besides beat a rice bag? They didn't teach him anything.
No, but what
he beat a rice bag.
You're kind of going way past. That was way after he had done years of training for his life. Because keep in mind, he was already in the fight pits way before this, and it wasn't like he lost a fight. He literally tried. He had a botched assassination, then got shot off a roof, then got found in a river by a bunch of people.
No, I was getting into the actual like the randomness of that side because that stuff makes sense in the revenge tale. This did not fit for me, and that was kind of random. The other stuff, yes, he was in this fighting arena in which they paid him to lose a lot of fights. I don't even know if he won any fights until like the end where he did it unintentionally. He was pretty much getting paid to lose, essentially.
I imagine he did.
He was getting. They kind of did like a Rocky thing to where they was trying to show how resilient he was, showing that he just lost a bunch of fights and got the hell beat out of him and fought through it a lot.
To get paid, he would still get paid to take dives.
To get money. And then they didn't even like. It was a lot going on with this film. So yes, he was taking dives.
I think the way you saw it disoriented you to it as well. Honestly,
well, because the stuff that stood out to me, like that plot made sense to me. All the stuff in the arena, the assassination, I was like, cool. This is cut and dry. They just added in such a random subplot of like, again, if you watch any content I've curated myself, any discussions we've had on this podcast, representation is a really big thing to me in media, especially for people like the trans community that don't get little to any representation in any media. But this just felt like such a random throw in. And then the subplot of the dictator, because they added in a lot of like B-roll footage of newscastings of this Dalai Lama figure orchestrating all this violence or having all this. He was a really big polarizing figure within the country, and they showed like 5 minutes of B-roll of chaos happening in the city, and then any other time you would see him in person, everything was chill, and they worshipped him as a god. Mm-hmm. So, and they said, I don't know, it was just so, it felt random. Maybe I'm not more aware of maybe the political situation going on in India historically, outside of like the caste system.
Yeah, no, exactly that. The caste system.
The revolution. I can't remember
and then the Sunni and the Shiite, the different types of actually in the same factions of the same religion.
Yeah. There's a revolution that happened with Gandhi that I'm forgetting about when they were rebelling against the British for independence. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, that was before as well.
Right. So I assumed they were trying to do something akin to that, but because he was a Hindu person that they worshipped.
But that stuff seemed more background. That stuff seemed a lot more background.
A social commentary on the Indian caste system and a reflection of what's going on there now to a degree.
Right, which has always been there. There's always been the caste system. He mentioned as far as like, they are. I mean, it shows as far as like when he's working, the building he's working in, like the high rise he's working in, how it's like the lap of luxury. The guys are getting this, literally fingering caviar and snorting cocaine off of ladies' parts and everything else. And of course, how it shows that people that they're pretty much living at the bottom. They're very much. The movie is, of course, the star is the Slumdog Millionaire himself, Dev Patel. So it's kind of it seems he's very aware of that. This movie depicts. I'm guessing whatever it is in any part of city in India, it shows it very well. The stuff you're talking about as far as the trans community, all those different type of things, that stuff is there, but it seemed more background to me. It seemed very much more like it is. At the end of the day, it's Dev Patel wants revenge on this dude who violated his mom in all kinds of ways, and this other guy, the Kingpin, who made the call for it to go down. And for the most part, he does that. It does take in the middle of the movie, it takes a big chunk of time where it kind of has a break.
Huge chunk of time is what it feels like.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of time where it does show him kind of trying to get his sauce back, so to speak. He does train against a bag. But by this time he's there doing this training montage. He's already gotten in shape before. It's not the first time he's fought. He's kind of getting his roots back underneath him, his feet back underneath him. And he's fighting alongside and then later on he goes in, he fights alongside some people from the trans community and other people too. It was kind of, at first I was like, I still to this day though, I do not understand. It was a literal war at the club, but I don't even understand. And they're all dressed up like Kali, which is cool. Who is the goddess of war? But I didn't understand why or how. Because let's get into it real quick. Let's get into this part. There's a big highlight of an action scene. There's like two main action scenes in the movie that last like 40 minutes basically. There's one that happens where he tries the first assassination attempt. I thought it was very well set up as far as like showing how clever he is. It's a montage showing how he's pretty much first how he infiltrates his high rise, then how he has how he gets a gun, then it shows how he gets the gun through the security system by actually training a dog to kind of bring things to him later on over time. I was like, that's pretty dope. Then he actually gets into the bathroom to try to kill this dude, like in True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he kind of gets cold feet and botches it pretty badly. Then he has a whole big old battle scene that made Dev sick. And then as he's trying to escape the building through a whole bunch of series of events, he gets clipped by a dude shooting a sniper rifle out of a helicopter and falls into a river. And he's handcuffed. He's actually handcuffed at this point. And I didn't understand how it was that anybody found him in this river. A, B, how those people would care so much about him. Like, did I miss something? Like, why do they care about him? Are they from that village also? Is that how they already knew him or something?
So that makes more sense to me for the fact, like throughout the beginning part of the film, they do like to your point with the cast system, they do a really good job of showcasing the society and how the people at the bottom of the ladder, the totem pole, work really well together and all really know each other basically. Like
so they know.
There is a scene. I'm assuming so. That's my assumption because they were talking about
the movie doesn't say.
And then in the media, because remember before that whole chase happened, they showed on the news that individual had an assassination attempt on him. Everybody does not like, or I'm not gonna say everybody doesn't, but a lot of people within that rung of the caste system sees that general as a dictator and an enforcer because that's what he is. So I'm assuming because they had this dude's picture everywhere and it was an assassination attempt, they kind of just followed all the gunshots and the noise going on and found his body is the only thing I can assume off of that. They didn't really show anything in the film to really showcase why. Because I think he even asked the why in the film, and then her response didn't really make sense to me, or it was really quick.
Yeah, said they said because you have a lot of scars and you didn't die, therefore God has a greater plan for you later on. That's pretty much how they phrase it. It's like, okay, so you dug me out of a river at night while the cops were chasing the cops. This super corrupt police force is chasing me with helicopters firing. You said no worries, I'm gonna pull you. It's like that's good Samaritans. I get you. Of course, they're great people. Otis is a great person, but to have that go down is wild. That is wild.
Even further, what I want to speak on really quickly about Shaw is like the dichotomy of the actions you talked about of showing how intricate his approach had to be for him to steal the lady's wallet to get the job there, and then train the dog at the job and all that stuff. And then the second part of the film, he kind of just walks in there.
He said,
and then the people he was with, that community just walks in there. I'm like, wait, he did all this the first time to get in there, and the security was all tight. And the second time, he just punched his way in there with no effort.
Punched his way in.
And then the people behind him that helped him out, they just walked up the elevator, no effort.
Yeah. A mob of collie dressed people like, no, how you
elaborate as hell.
Giant blue faces. Yeah, that was wild.
The elevator, and yeah,
it was very entertaining to watch. But I was like, all right, logic. I mean, the thing is, as they always say, the golden rule of filmmaking, your audience will go along with at least one crazy thing, but 2 is a lot. 3. What is going on? So it was a lot. This movie is a lot. But that's not to say it's not entertaining. Again, I saw it the right way. I saw it from a distance on my computer screen, chilling. So I was able to kind of process things a little easier. But even then, I'm still like, wait a minute. There's some gaps.
Watch this on any screen bigger than 30 inches, and your eyes are going to be on a roller coaster.
It may be a bit much.
A question I want to ask y'all about in regards to one of the bigger parts of anything we always talk about here on the show being the antagonist. I briefly talked about him being the Dalai Lama character, and then the dictator general guy. Did you feel like there's anything relevant or anything to say about these guys at all?
So there was one thing
about them.
I mean, obviously corruption was massive. You put it pretty good as far as the idea that he was so corrupt he's won the Holy Land. The irony in that. What's funny about it was, so they've done studies on revenge before and how people feel with it. Revenge, most people after they get revenge feel almost nothing, feel hollow or feel worse, almost kind of like I did all this. I all the anxiety I had about this, and I still feel nothing. There's only one brief period of catharsis when you get revenge, and that's while you're literally taking it in some capacity. While it's actually the moment it's happening, you're like, this is okay, this is what I wanted. But as soon as it's over, you feel nothing, like, right? So for him to actually, part of the revenge, I imagine, was him actually getting the better of the man who harmed his family, who abused his mother, and because the guy that pulled the trigger, the guy who called it in. Neither of them knew anything about this guy. They had no idea who he was, what he wanted. They're lost. They're confused until their dying breath. Like, who are you? What's going on here? So any satisfaction he could have gotten from that is gone. It would have been nice if they did something as far as, like, remember me? I was the guy that you did this to my mom. He didn't even know he was there. He didn't even see him. He was hidden the whole time. So it's kind of like, it's a weird dichotomy as far as like good and evil, where the evil is just complete, couldn't care less or even acknowledge what the good is. So I don't know. I would have done it a little differently if I had my druthers.
Yeah, honestly, like with the way that it was portrayed, I feel like the villain was more of the caste system than the Dalai Lama himself, which I do think is a bit of a misstep, because I mean, I'm a villain guy. Like, I mean, if your villain hits, then you're usually gonna get my attention. If he doesn't, then you're gonna lose me. And it didn't feel like the villain was that relevant outside of the fact that he was in the position of power. Like, like it didn't feel personal. It literally wasn't personal. It was just a thing that happened, and he was just a byproduct of it, which, I mean, in reality is probably the accuracy of how a lot of things go. Fair. So I mean, I give kudos for that, but at the same time, like, it didn't give anything to really compel me to that villain or his plight or anything about him in any way. So it was like, honestly, just overall with this film, I think there's a lot of good things about it, but I do think that Dev may have got a little bit over ambitious with all the concepts he tried to jam pack into this one action movie, quote unquote. it felt much more like a drama and again like a social commentary where he just lost it and started swinging than like than like directly like an action movie. Like it felt like it was trying to like dip into two worlds here, which is possible when you do it and you can pull it off. Like I mean, it's great, but to be his first ever directing thing and to get like the mixed bag of like really great shots and really bad shots, like some really great scenes and others like why did you hang here for so long? It honestly it's just a really mixed bag, so it's hard to really review. And I went on a whole tangent, so I'm sorry. We were talking about the villain.
No, I agree. I think it's fine. It's fine. This really was a literal definition of a jack of all trades and a master of none. I think at some point through the film, everything he attempted to do was good at one point. And then, like, literally, we talked about earlier, the two different infiltration scenes. Like, one was amazingly well thought out and intricate, and the other one was, like, really rushed, it felt like. And that's how I felt with each thing. Even to the point of the villains, it felt like he would try to set up something about them or, like, some kind of characterization. And for me personally, because, again, my favorite movie of all time is A Revenge Tale. I love Revenge Tales. They're usually pretty cut and dry. Yeah. In a Revenge Tale, I feel like you have to characterize your villain. They're honestly, to me, damn near the most important part outside of the protagonist, because the whole point of the film is to kill that individual or that group of individuals. So you have to make me feel good that they're gone, or maybe make me feel something about them. I don't think I felt anything about either of these men when they were killed by the main character in this film. They were kind of just like, all right, cool, they gone now, they evil, story's over with. I didn't feel anything towards them. And to the main villain's point, at least the Dalai Lama character, I can't even really think of any motivation he had outside of power, I guess. Which sometimes with some characters it works, with somebody like a Galactus maybe, but he's more of a force of nature than just that. Where some characters want power, but even then, if that's the case, you have to characterize him to some extent, give him some kind of character trait or flaw that makes them maybe arrogant, or maybe they are acting tough on the outside. Give some kind of depth to the character, so it's not just a ABCD type of thing with them.
But also, it seemed too brief. Like you said before, they pretty much tried to build him up with B-roll from reality, from the real world, as far as like this guy's bad. It's like they're doing it's a weird system where they are doing the show don't tell, but they're showing stuff in a way that doesn't really make it coherent. It didn't really make you feel anything for him. And they did have that scene, the flashback showing the police captain, the corrupt police captain, do what he did to the mom.
Right.
But at the same time, it was like you said, it was wildly unmotivated, and it was over. We don't even know this guy's name or care about him, and it was done so long ago. It was done like 20 years ago or 30 years ago when he was a kid. It almost just seems kind of we're not connected enough to it to be invested in the revenge. You mentioned your favorite movie, which is Django. We're still very much connected to Calvin Candy's demise or downfall. We're very much connected to seeing Django get his revenge, get his wife back. All these things are still very much we're invested in the journey. With this, even though we may like Dev Patel's character, we don't really know his name. He doesn't talk that much. All we know is that he kind of wants revenge. We find it out later on that he wants revenge. It's kind of like it wasn't quite fleshed out enough for us to be invested in the revenge flick. Beatrice Kiddo, who's one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite revenge tales, we very much know why she wants revenge. And Bill is a very much well drawn out character. Even though even in the first movie we don't even see him, we still feel the weight of this character. There was none of that in here.
Because they talk, again, to your point, like Bill, they talk about him like he's some kind of godly figure. And we've seen that and stuff like that in Naruto when they talk about Madara. You can hype up characters without.
I'm glad that you mentioned Naruto.
Oh God!
Because when I tell you, they really Naruto swing this man's village burning. Literally. How many times? Like, why did the village burning get more screen time than your villain, bro? Like,
yeah,
make that make sense.
All the cutscenes of his mom lecturing him about. So maybe part of it was because maybe there's there could be a whole layer to this film that we're not understanding because we're not Hindu, we're not Indian. Because I think there was some deep cuts in regards to some of the religious aspects and references made to certain gods and certain things of that nature. Because I feel like there was the scenes where he would like be speaking to his mother. There's one in particular where he was like washing his hands, and maybe I'm just old or something. I couldn't necessarily make out a lot of what she was communicating to him and the purpose of him washing his hands there, and a lot of the metaphorical stuff that she was conveying to him. I'm like, okay, if we keep flashing back to this moment or these moments, there has to be something that she's saying or something that she's doing that's going to be integral in his development later on in the film, maybe something he forgot. And I could not tell you what that was from my perspective.
So one of the all I could put together was obviously she was talking about the significance of his hands, washing his hands, and all that kind of fun stuff. And of course, his hands get brutally burned, and that becomes kind of his essentially as a big part of him and how he recognizes himself. How he got the job to infiltrate. He pretty much shows her his damaged hands, saying, "I'll do anything." And it's kind of ironic because that's how he's willing to do anything to get revenge instead. So I think that's kind of the connection or the actual kind of the symbolism of his hands journey, so to speak. He wraps his hands up and he fights or punches that bag over and over again. And then in the movie, he gets stabbed through the hand by that guy, the Dalai Lama's needle, essentially. So his hands are meant to be part of his character in that regard. That's what I'm postulating, so to speak. But it's again, it's the ideas are there. They're very much there. It feels almost like this is a great outline for a movie. But again, because it's his first directorial debut, a lot of the ideas are there, but it's just not quite fleshed out or cooked quite thoroughly enough to kind of really gel, really hit. And again, like you said, Otis, a lot of these shots are that when he goes up the elevator, right? Let's say A24 movie.
Beautiful.
They're incredible. They're flat out incredible. And a lot of the action, the part where he is during again that big huge chase scene and fight scene, there's a part where he's fighting a guy in a room with an axe, and I'm like, this stuff. Watch it again, Dev, if you can, on the alleged stolen version. We actually can see what's happening. It is overwhelming what's happening. That kind of to have that choreography, whatever they did there, I was blown away by it. But you got to make sure people understand if you have a motivation for these things. And it's clear what's happening, it only hits that much harder. If we're invested in the character's journey, it's that much more satisfying and gratifying. This guy, this amazing fight he has with the Axe guy, is a random nobody. That's like, why are you at my house? Basically. So it's this kind of understanding a little more about involved with storytelling and directing, I think.
Yeah, this one, I'm sorry not to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
This hits on a couple of themes that we talk about regularly within our conversations about storytelling in general. I mean, there are a lot of great setups in this. The payoffs, not so much. There's a lot of nuance in how the story is told and the shots of the city and how they showcase it visually. But there is virtually no nuance in like the personality of the characters other than Kid is just a mad man. Like mad to the point where he almost messes up his own plan out of anger, like when he's that close to it. It's just like, again, it's so close to being good because there are so really, really, really strong elements of it. So I don't want to dissuade anyone that's watching this from watching the movie because it's worth seeing.
Right.
But
I agree.
I think because of how strong certain things about it was, including that trailer, because like whoever did that trailer was a god.
Editing god. Bro. They cut that trailer together fire.
Man. But
God,
like we have that perception of the movie coming in, seeing that trailer. Like everybody was just kind of really gassed up off of that. And then you get to the movie and it starts off at a slower pace. Like even like the quote unquote fighting at the beginning is not like heavy action packed. It's him losing a fight.
It's like two blows. It's like pretty much they get in there and he throws one punch. It's down. Yeah.
I think that this movie does have some pacing issues because I mean it takes a little while to get to the meat that people were really there for. So I mean, I feel like you lose a little bit of attention there, but when you get to it, it's pretty good. Like the fight scenes weren't badly choreographed. It was just sometimes you were just so close to it. Like it felt like the camera was on Dev's shoulder as he's getting punched sometimes. It's like I want to see his face get punched. I don't want to see the side of it, you know. It's just
Well, they literally had that multiple times where it's the point of view of the person getting punched, like when they're on the ground and you see like the bad guy cop punching down at it. So they did it a couple times. Again, it is I was able to process it because I'm watching it on this small screen. I could only imagine if I was in a theater, it would. I would
this shit like 15 times because I was like, my eyes were literally hurting.
I
watching
believe
this.
I believe it
on a big screen.
I believe it. I believe
two things that I really like, at least for as far as things I wish were done better, because like to the point I had earlier with regards to him having a lot of things that he did well. I saw hints of Jackie Chan type combat where he will be in certain fights and he will be kind of characterize himself through different little quirky gestures he would do with fighting, whether that's improvisation with certain weapons, certain movements. Even in that second like big fight in the arena, he was doing more monkey-like movements. If they would have focused on that a little bit more, that could have been a way to characterize him. And the second thing in regards to the cast system we talked about, I thought some of the highlights of the film, well, at least for me, one of the highlights were in the beginning where they were like, while it happened, they played the GI, they played 21 Rum in the background, and you just see how this web of this caste system has survived due to them depending on one another. And what I thought was going to happen was that at the end of the film, that would have come back around to like the people uprising against the Dalai Lama character. I thought that would have been a whole way it would have been a great way to close it out, because you have these people that he's been abusing rising up against him, and him doing something on some Game of Thrones type things with Cersei where he's casting the guy out to the people. Stuff like that. I'm like, damn, you were like right there, and you just felt kind of short in ways that you could have closed that out.
But I big payoff.
Right. I think it really just stems from the fact this is his first project, and we've heard people talk about it a lot as far as you just falling in love with all of your own work. I think that, especially to the point where your shots, where he probably filmed certain shots, and because it's his first thing, he's like, I need everything to be in. It's a 2 hour, it's a damn near a 2 hour movie, and I feel like 45 minutes of that was B-roll and shots being held on people.
And it could have been, even another thing too, is it could have actually been, a lot of stuff could have been cut out. Oftentimes, movies always have, No,
that was me fixing my camera. My bad. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It could have been that there were things. Yeah, oftentimes movies have content that is cut out of it too. I wonder if there was, like you said, everyone loves their own work. There's still an editor involved. There's still a studio involved. Or have you producers? It may have been that they cut out a lot of the actual story content, or or things that would have made things kind of gel better. Because the pacing you mentioned, Otis, you're right. The pacing's off because it is pretty slow getting started, which I didn't mind too much. I was trying to get invested in it. But then it has literally about a half hour of just non-stop action. Like it opens that assassination attempt, the escape attempt, getting caught by the police, then the big huge chase scene. It lasts like 25 minutes. It's all that stacked together. It's a lot. It's like, whoa, it's almost overwhelming. Pace it kind of as a part to all of this once, and then it has a big huge lull where he's just literally just sitting there. I don't even know if Dev has a single line when he's at that kind of place, getting his groove back and training against that bag with those people. I think he just sits there the whole time. It does show his flashback, which is nice. But other than that, it's like it pretty much just takes a massive like this pause in the whole story, in the whole movie. Then he gets back, it hits in full swing again when he goes back there for the big huge climax. So it is a weird mixed bag, fam. It is a weird mixed bag. But here, that being said, I was thoroughly proud of an Indian American or British Indian American doing something, making this kind of a movie, his first movie. I mean, this is a dude who's younger than us, directing a big, huge budget project with Jordan Peele and them. He's in his 30s. He's younger than me. I'm sorry.
Oh, younger. Yeah, I was like, damn, how old is he?
Sorry, my bad.
No, you're good. Go ahead. He's 33.
He's older age.
I think he's older than Otis by a little bit. Right?
Yeah, I'm 31.
Yeah,
my bad. But I mean, think about that. 33, right? The age of Christ when he died, to be doing this. That's incredible. And also, he clearly got in shape for the role.
He was shredded.
He worked on the script and story too. That's a lot to do. So I gotta get props. I get flowers when I can.
I can because he clearly did a lot of the stunts himself. He again the directed this. I'm sure he had a hand in writing this. Like this is a big project, and to get to this level on your first try, I can't wait to see a second movie. I can say that for sure. But this one, it's not perfect, but I do think it's worth watching. But yeah, like it's like two different movies at times, right? Like it's the story and the world of that version of India that he lives in, and then it's like the crime thriller and
the raid.
Yeah, basically. And I feel like you just gotta either go heavier into one or the other, or just find ways to just mix it a little bit better. Because like it was almost like a shock getting to the actual first major fight scene in there. Because I'm like, okay, we're chilling. I'm laying back. It was like, okay, we're here, and it's just we're here.
We're off.
We're still here. We are still here.
We're not gone.
It's not over yet.
Because the part where where he's like he gets clotheslined or he gets smashed right in the car like a truck and gets arrested. Like, okay, so we pause here. He wakes up. He wakes up in that truck.
Right back at it.
Let's go. Throw hands. And he jumps out of it with a broken leg. Basically, this guy is on fire.
His adrenaline was crazy for him to be running that much.
Imagine what it was. And then he runs into another bit, and that's when he has an axe fight. He has an axe fight after he gets arrested. So it's like this guy is just a maniac. I was like,
the whole fight in the middle of like him getting chased. The cops just like lost him for a minute. He's like, "Oh, you fucked up my prostitution brothel ring I had going on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna kill you with an axe."
Yeah,
I think.
There was a part where, dude, you remember that part where right for X fight? There's a dude like strolling by that gets clipped by that axe. The guy he like swings and he hits a random dude right in the.
He like catches him with. He doesn't cut him, but he like catches him with the end part of it.
Yeah, it's like why are you walking? You see them fighting here? Why are you walking by the background? Just go ahead and leave. Go home. He
was trying to get some cheeks, man. He was not worried about nothing else. You see, other dude, they cut to them jumping through the wall, but he's worried about them cheeks. He ain't worried about whatever's going on the other side of that wall. Whatever's going on the other side of that wall.
He was. He serves him right. Yeah, but discount cheeks ain't worth it.
To Otis's point, I think the things that are the saving grace about this film to me are a lot of the new perspective. I think a lot of the things that I had issues with were, to Otis's point, like the lack of focus in either direction. For me in particular, I spent some time in college like researching some Indian culture, and it was very interesting to me. So getting to see more of the political aspect of it, okay, I'm interested. All right, if that's the tell you're going to tell me, what are you going to tell me? And then it would jump back into the action stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm here for an action film now. And I just don't think it transitioned really smoothly into either point.
Or it didn't tie it into it. It didn't tie, Indiana Jones, for example, it ties the lore and the idea of the religions into the events Indiana Jones is doing, the quest he's on. It didn't really tie those things into it. It isn't as much. This is what Dev Patel journey. Yeah.
And so to this point, I would love to see more films like this. Like if he's the indie Jordan Peele, for lack of a better term, and he can provide a lot of films and content based around his culture and his religion, I would love to see that, because again, the representation, we don't get to see too much of it, and I think that's what made this interesting. Is that I will say one of the better benefits too is that he made India. Well, I don't even. Is this what city is this in India? I don't even know what city.
Did they mention it? They may have mentioned it. All fairness,
I don't know if this is like a fake city or this is like an actual city in India or not. But yeah, it felt alive and it felt like it was in India. This city felt alive and vibrant.
Again, you mentioned at the very beginning, especially, it felt very much like this is like a real city. I could smell it. I could smell it the whole time. I was like, I'm here for this. I'm here for this.
Well, buddy, when he went to go pick them guns up, and he's like, hey, but I have the John Wick gun here from the movie. You see? Yeah. I was like,
this is dope. By the way, you said something that's awesome. If he actually is like essentially the Indian Jordan Peele, or Jordan Peele of India, that's a great handle to have, man. That'd be more power to you.
And it could be a part of why Jordan Peele is producing this as well. Like, I think he's done a great job. Like, you saw what he did, Candyman with Nia DaCosta. You see Jordan Peele like producing a lot of these films where women and people of other different demographics are starting to get opportunities. I would be surprised if he had a good hand in like helping to provide some of the opportunity. Just attaching.
There's a bit of a story behind it. I mean, the movie was getting ready to go under, and Jordan Peele kind of came in and saved it and put some more resources behind it. So he definitely had a big part of it as well. And I mean, I think some of that kind of shows is like it's just certain shots that you see in a Jordan Peele movie that you're just like, damn. And I feel like it had some of those shots in this movie too. So
the visuals, I know we're talking about the depictions of the fight scenes or what have you, but the visuals, this is not cheap. You can tell, oh, they have money.
Oh yeah.
This does not look cheap. This doesn't look like a Netflix produced movie. This looks like, whoa, okay, this is legit. And I didn't even see it in the theater allegedly.
Ain't bad because the Gray Man.
The Gray Man had $200 million. Had $200 million though. $20 million. So, but yeah, I know
an infinite team of people working on all the effects and stuff.
It did. This still looked actual like practical as well. Like I mean, the fight scenes look very much like I mentioned the Raid. Everyone knows Otis and I think being at the Raid is like the highest tier of.
Be blazing that movie. You love that movie, boy.
We love it to pieces, right? And the thing is, this movie clearly is like to compare it at all to the Raid is saying a lot. And Dev Patel clearly, like you said, was definitely doing a lot of his own stunts, a lot of the own action himself. And you mentioned Jackie Chan before too, Dev. It's fun that that Dev Patel didn't portray himself as a superhero that could just take on anybody and beat anybody up. No, he was actually like scrambling for his life a lot. He was like the underdog in a lot of the fights. I love seeing that kind of stuff too. So yeah, I was here for it.
And I'm with y'all. That like I said, that final fight scene, I'm like that. If we could have gotten that replicated, I think it would have been perfect. That final sequence where they're fighting that bar on like the top floor, because you can see a lot more of what's going on. The cuts aren't as sporadic, especially even when the tribe of the Kali worshippers came in with their knives and shit. I'm like, okay, this is brutal. This is gory. It's cool, and it makes sense. Like that was like that's what I thought I was going to get for the entire movie. That's what I expected, and I just wasn't what I expected. I think that's. Because I know I sounded really nasty coming out the gate talking about the film, but that's more so through like me not getting what I expected, and partially part of that was the trailer. Because I will say the trailer it didn't mislead you, but the trailer came off like, oh, from start to finish, this is going to be an action revenge tale, and then to like your guys' point, it was that whole little roller coaster of chilling, set up, action, drop, and then like right after that. 45-minute action sequence. It was just B-roll and slow shots and slow-mo shots and flashbacks for like 30 minutes, it felt like, before we got back into the action and finish it off. And I'm like, you could have just like chopped that up, like Otis said, like chop that shit up into where some of the action is like spread it throughout. It'd be cool. It would have been, honestly, it would have been damn near a perfect movie for what it was trying to do.
Yeah, you start that movie with a heavy action scene. You don't have to explain it. Just give us some straight hands to start that off. That lull in the middle, I wouldn't even noticed it. I was like, man, like I didn't.
Because oftentimes they do that.
Yeah,
the professional movie that's highly praised with John Reno. I'm sure. Have both of y'all seen The Professional? Okay, obviously, where Gary Oldman says, everyone. That movie has a massive lull in the middle as well, but you don't mind it because of how they set up at the very beginning with him doing that assassination and everything. It's cool. If that fight at the beginning of this movie where he's in the ring. If that had been an actual fight, even if you still look throws, that's fine. But had been a full hands-to-hand fight for a while, it had changed the whole. Again, like Otis just said, it would have changed things a lot. It changed our perspective and expectations some. So I don't know, but yeah.
Anyways. Last thing I'll speak on too is usually a big thing that when it comes to these films is the training montage. And I kind of spoke about it a little bit in how, at least for me, the training montage was kind of lackluster for me in particular. For the factor of, I'm assuming that this tribe of Kali worshippers are about to show him something unique to help him like win the fight at the end. And Buddy is just punching a rice bag and holding up water buckets for 15 minutes, and that's it. I'm like, oh, he's just going to get healthy and go right back in. He's not about to learn anything. I'm like, what was the point of the punching to the beat of the water to the drums? It was just a lot of stuff going on that didn't serve a purpose.
Exactly. It was kind of empty. It was empty calories because you're right. They had something there. They also had the idea of he blows the dust or the powder into his face. You're pretty much saying this will last you. The pain will last until it's done working through you, essentially. So you think that, of course, there's no flashback, but you think that it kind of teach him something or help him to grow in some way. He already knew what happened to him. What happened to his mom? He didn't forget. He was already taking the revenge for it too. Also, it didn't help him get over it anyway. It's like I'm not entirely sure. Even to the point where he goes back to the fight to the rings run by the underground fight ring run by Charles Copley, and he actually wins the fight and gets a whole bunch of money. It's not like he uses that money for anything. He sounds like
he gave it back to the church. I will say that Because he got the money and gave it back to the temple because they were like going to get evicted.
The temple, okay, so what happened? Okay,
that's what happened. He like left the book back there of money.
That makes sense.
And the key phrase that the leader of the temple repeated to him that he wrote in a note in that backpack was like, "Remember who you are." And to your point, he's been remembering who he was the whole film.
I know he didn't.
So I don't understand what that whole thing was.
What is his character arc like?
No, the arc.
There is none.
Oh, this East.
He was the same character from start to finish. I mean, granted, we could argue the John Wick comparisons. Like, you guys know better than me because I haven't seen the movies yet. But like, has John Wick really developed as a person through any of these films?
No.
So like, if that's the comparison, I'm not that mad at it. I'm not that mad at it. If he's like, not, it's a revenge tale, cut and simple. I don't think it's meant to. I can't say it wasn't meant to be complex because they added a lot of complex themes in it, but. The character, I don't think it was meant to be super complex himself.
No, you don't have to have an arc. I get that. I think one thing that it does show, and maybe I may be stretching here, but it seems to show that he is ready to die. He's accepted that he could die essentially. And in the movie, that's everyone that's here watching this has already seen it. That does happen. So maybe that's part of it in a way is that he is ready to. He's gotten over his fear. I think that's why he didn't pull the trigger the first time. He was still afraid of the guy. The idea of him, it shows he actually has to leave the restaurant at one time after he kind of sees him. He has a panic attack. So I think what it's showing is he has to get over his fear of facing or confronting his past in a way. Maybe that's it. And then once he does that, he's ready to die. And so that's my guess, basically.
I need an explanation on why we saw that fire-ass monkey fighting style for like all of 2 minutes and then didn't see that pop up at all in the final fight. He did all that crazy shit and then didn't do it at all in the final fight.
That would have been dope.
And where did that even come from? Where did you learn that from? That's what I'm like. Where did you train that shit from?
That would have been dope. Could you imagine?
I will say that last 15 minutes was good. I like when it comes to Revenge Tales. I'm always the thing I look forward to the most is that final sequence where you go back to the big boss after you trained. For Django, it was him going back, getting the burgundy suit and taking people out or whatever else. In this one, it was him dipping the monkey head and bleaching the fur for the mask white and going crazy in the kitchen and whatnot. Granted, I think he walked in so easy, like literally just, and that's probably partial of what the issue is for me is because he didn't develop or train in his fighting skills anymore. He could have realistically just did this from the start. Yeah, he could have just walked up, punched out 2 of the guards, punched out everybody in the kitchen, and then went straight up there the first time around.
He actually
did all this. He did all this. Yeah, it's similar to like how you saw like Bruce Wayne in the Batman Begins do a lot of like different weird stuff because before he went to go train in with Ra's. Because I'm like, okay, it makes sense. He didn't have the skill set yet. This dude had the skill set from the start of the film and could have just been punching people out, but just didn't.
You know what? That's something right there, Dev. If this had been a different movie, if it had been some young kid, even have it where he's younger, right? And he tries to assassinate him. He finds a way to get into this restaurant, work in this restaurant, to try to assassinate him with a gun. Fails horribly. Doesn't have any martial arts training at all. Basically, fails horribly. Barely manages to survive. And then he gets found in that river by them. And they do train him for a couple years. And then he does go back with those Kali warriors. That'd have been a very different movie.
It made a lot more sense.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that. That would have been a very different movie. Yeah.
Because even if he didn't learn any new martial arts styles, you could just be like, oh, he just got stronger and he's a grown man now versus a teenager or a child.
Grown man.
Instead, he punched some rice to the beat.
Right. He punched rice to the beat, and that's not a bad idea. I love me some rice. We all know this, but yeah, that's what he did. It would have been fun too if the guy had said like, because if it say it's Dev Patel a few years ago at the very beginning, a completely clean shaven essentially, and he has a failed assassination attempt. Then that guy remembers him. It's like, yo, it's you. So then years later, he comes back again. So you remember me? I wouldn't like try to kill you. You killed my mom. Whatever. It's like, there's a connection there between those two guys. Essentially, something there. So it's actually some meat. One other thing I'll say before I forget. There's a line. I get where they're coming from. There's a line in the Street Fighter 2, the movie, where Raul Julia's playing Bison, and Chun-Li's like, "You ruined my life. You came to my town and destroyed everything." And Bison's like, "For you, the day Bison came to your village was the biggest day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday." I get what they're going for as far as showing that they corrupt evil dudes, they don't give a crap about anything. For them, nothing means anything. I get that. However, at least in that movie, this is the horrible Street Fighter 2 movie. Raul Julia was a very memorable Bison. This guy was nothing. He literally spoke once or twice. He was nothing. So I see again. I see what Dev Patel was going for. I really do. I agree with y'all. His next movies will be great, probably.
I think he just needed more eyes. If he would have just had more constructive criticism on like some of the stuff, I think he would have been fine. Because to your point, again, we've talked about it a couple times where even if you're not going to give him this intricate plot line or character development, the whole scene where they had him like snort the bleach through like the cocaine, to your point, if he could have been younger, he could have saw that and saw, okay, this is a vice he has. It's going to come back around the end of how he gets taken down. Just give them something about them to make them unique so that can lead to something later on.
Yeah, it's so close. And that's what it is. It's so frustrating. It's because it's so close. This isn't just
right
bad.
there.
It's like it's so close. That's the problem.
Yeah. Minor tweaks turn this movie from what it is into one of the greatest action movies of all time. It's got a lot of good bones. It's got a lot of good bones.
Last thing I'll speak on is the random sparrow thing with the love interest, I guess. Where they like made that a big thing about the sparrow. Was that like supposed to be a part of his village, I guess? Was a sparrow?
Again, it missed up a payoff. Set up with no payoff. Again,
she was bad too. I was like, oh my god,
she was bad.
Oh my god,
man.
Oh, man. She reminded me of like
Priyanka
Chopra a little bit. I was like, oh man, okay, all right.
What are you doing out here? Anywho,
y'all wanna give me a rating before we get up out of here? We'll start from left to right with OG Big Blur. What you got for me?
Out of 10, I would probably give this a 7. Again, good bones. Great visuals at times, just some minor missteps and the lack of villain. But with how strong everything else was, with how much they world built and made you really see and experience this world, I give them kudos for that.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with OG. It is very much it's a 7. It's a strong 7. It's like a great cheeseburger. Sure, there's a lot of empty calories you shouldn't have, but at the same time, it can be fun. This is kind of like Sucker Punch in that you can have it on the background and like turn the volume down, not worry about the actual story, just enjoy the visuals sometimes, enjoy the actual fight scenes, the way that what's happening on the screen. And I am excited to see what Dev Patel does next because I know he's going to have some. I'm sure that he also will take the notes. He seems like a really humble guy. I'm sure he'll take the notes from the crowd as far as the audience that saw it as well. And his next project will be that much stronger. So I'm here for it.
I'm probably going to give it around a 6. And that's just because I saw it in theater. And like seeing this in theater, it was a really hard watching theater just because of the screen size and that shaky cam was like, again, I've never been visually dizzy or like motion sick in a movie before. And that I was really pissed. I'm not gonna lie. At first I was so pissed off because I'm like, bro, I've struggled to watch the first 45 minutes of this movie because I could not see shit.
Yeah, and then you were gassed. You went in there probably more hyped than all of us combined. That's so it's a different scenario. Yeah.
But yeah, to all our other points we talked about, I think again, like small tweaks, this could have been a solid 9 or a 10. If things were like slightly tweaked beforehand, but it's probably a 6 to me. If you see this on streaming platforms at home, it probably won't be as bad. But I'm not gonna say not to see it in theater because I would recommend everybody to support this movie in theaters. If you want to support Dev Patel and believe in his ability as a director and content creator going forward, I would highly suggest go see it in theaters. But be aware that it's gonna be a little tough. Maybe don't sit so close to the front of the screen like I did. Like go to the back.
This is a full spoiler review. I'm pretty sure they've all seen it by now. If you haven't, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
All
right. Well, we gotta. I gotta head out. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. This has been Captain Diesel, Professor E, King of the Comics, Ethan Murphy, and Big Black Muffin of the Then and Now podcast. We will see you guys next time. Peace.
Wait, that's him.
It is him.
He's the Muffin.
The Big Black
Muffin. Yeah. And didn't Warner Brothers it up at least.